Hey, I'm Jonathan Johnson with the Johnson Firm right here in Lake Charles. Today, I'm joined by one of our partners, Erin Abrams. She works in our family law division. Why don't you say hello, Erin?
Hi, everyone.
Today, we're going to talk about something that gets confused a lot. I know we hear this a lot. I've talked to you about this, and kind of deciding to delve into this topic. But the term restraining order. People hear restraining order and they automatically think something. Okay, they have their own preconceived notions of what that means and what it is and what it covers. And what I've found, and in talking to you, I know you have a similar experience, is that this is one of the most confused terms, and a lot of times it has negative consequences when people just don't really understand what it is. So, what kind of confusion are you hearing when people come in and say, "Oh, she put a restraining order on me," or "He put a order on me"? What? Tell me about some of your
Yeah,
experiences with that.
absolutely. Well, there's a couple different types of orders that I always make sure to clarify with the client of what is it that we're looking at? Is it a protective order? Is it a restraining order? Is it an injunction? And sometimes in the heat of the moment when they're looking at something, they're not certain what it is. Their mind kind of, like you said, jumps to that worst conclusion. Oh, I must not be able to contact this person, or I can't see the kids. I've got to stay away. And generally in family law, that's not actually what we're looking at that initial phase.
Right.
So, for example, there are a couple types of injunctions that we see very often in family court.
And
Some,
you said something there.
sorry,
Injunctions.
yeah,
Right. Everybody comes in and says restraining order, restraining order, restraining order. What a restraining order is, and this is something they don't understand. A lot of
sure,
people don't understand, and it's why we kind of want to shoot these videos, is there's a process for obtaining an order from the court that says somebody can or cannot do something. And that's generally the process of getting what's called an injunction. If you do that first, without any opportunity for the other side to hear, to be heard, to defend themselves, to say something, that's the restraining order part. It's temporary, right?
correct.
So, generally speaking, whether it's a property injunction, whether it's a stay away order or 9372.1, which we'll talk about in a second, kind of order, the temporary restraining order part of that, tell us just a little bit about what that is and this how easily obtainable that is so that people
Right.
understand, that they haven't been accused of some sort of great, horrible act, but also what it's going to do and then what the next step is.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have two that we primarily see in family court that are these temporary orders or that would lead to an injunction, like what we're talking about. One is actually not even related to behavior of the parties. One is strictly related to community property. And it serves to kind of just put a pause button on the proceedings until everyone has a period to kind of cool off for a moment. And the one specifically with property that we see often is saying, hey, nobody can get rid of anything that the other might have an ownership interest in.
Yeah.
And you kind of hear the classical story of wife sells to her brother or something the whole estate for $1, and so she gives 50 cents to her ex, and well, that was your half.
Yeah, we've seen that. Everybody's seen that meme on Facebook
Right.
of wife sold husband's boat for 50 cents and goes and hands him a quarter and says, "Hey, there's your half of the
Exactly.
community of the boat."
Right.
Yeah, and in reality, those things are funny. They're not true. But the reason those injunctions are put in place is because real things will happen. Somebody could go and take money out of a retirement account,
Absolutely.
take a loan against a retirement account.
Change an insurance policy.
Change the beneficiaries on an insurance policy.
Absolutely.
And so if you had that injunction in place, one thing you can do is you can send it to the insurance company and say, hey, we want to freeze this account. Nobody can mess with this.
Right.
And that will afford that protection. I know the answer to this, but I want those that are listening to know the answer to this. Of all the petitions for divorce we file, how many of them are going to automatically have that property injunction?
100%.
100%. It's not that your wife or your husband came to an attorney's office and said, hey, they've been spending all the money and hiding all the assets and doing all this. It's just, this is a best practices that our office is going to do every single time.
Correct.
Okay. And there's a lot of offices that are going to make that step. And there are some that are not.
Sure.
And I would venture to say that
It's
that's
trust.
not the best decision for the case because they don't know what they're not. They don't know what they don't know.
Sure.
They don't know what could happen or what they're not protecting. So specifically on that, there is no reason for someone to be scared or intimidated or worried about a property injunction.
Not at all. And that's why it's so important. Don't assume. Ask.
Right.
Consult with a lawyer and ask. These orders generally are written in a way that if you just read the plain language of the order, it'll indicate to you, is this the property type that they were talking about or is it something different? But if you're uncertain, Ask the question. That's what we're here for.
And it's going to be in place for a temporary period of time, normally up until we get to a hearing officer conference. But at that hearing officer conference, a lot of times we plead for that in every single one of our cases. We get there, the other side hasn't even filed pleadings, and the hearing officer's like, well, I'm going to make those reciprocal. I know that annoys us because we don't like people being granted things that they haven't filed pleadings for or done the work on. But the reason I bring it up now is to just indicate how not controversial that issue is.
I'm not going to object to it being reciprocal.
Because, hey, everybody agrees. We want the community property staying exactly where it is until we can come to some sort of an agreement on how it needs to be divided. The other one you talked about, the temporary restraining order that would be put into a standard divorce petition or something like that. The 9372.1 that I talked about. Okay. Does it prohibit them from contacting their spouse?
It does not.
Does it prohibit them from seeing their kids?
It does not.
Does it prohibit them from having visitation with
Absolutely
their kids?
not.
Going to the T-ball game?
It does not.
Going to the awards banquet?
It does not.
Okay. Tell me, just in layman's terms, what that temporary restraining order does.
Sure. It's extremely basic. It just says you can't harass your spouse.
Right.
That's it. It doesn't define what harassment is, okay? But it specifically says prohibited from harassing. And it's so common that half the time, and the law allows for this, I don't have to ask for it. The court can just give it to me.
Right. Yeah, the specific language is if it's pled for, it's granted.
Correct. And it's because this is something that we're just reiterating for people going through a divorce. It's already against other areas of law to perform harassment.
Yeah, and the harassment thing itself, it's, it's kind of that old, you know it when you see it type of thing. Obviously, the court and the legislature are aware that in these situations, tensions are a little high. So these injunctions are going to be placed in these petitions, not because someone has been abusive or because of something of that nature, something extreme of that nature, but because we want you to go to your corner, we want you to go to your corner. Let's let the tensions calm down, and let's go to the hearing officer in short order, and let's settle out some of these issues. But that, again, is another one that we get to the hearing officer. Okay, somebody pled for that. We're going to make it reciprocal. Neither one of you are to harass the other one. It's almost done without any of the lawyers saying anything.
That's correct.
It's just automatic.
That's correct. And I'm not objecting to that either.
Right.
Yeah.
So, again, these are things that people get served with a divorce, and they read this stuff. And immediately they think, I got a restraining order on me. I can't go around her. I can't can't see my kids. And it takes the temperature up in the case.
It's correct.
And if they just get in to talk to an attorney, or, I mean, again, if they just read the language of it themselves, they'll probably be able to decipher that, okay, well, she's not asking that I be prohibited from ever seeing anyone. She's saying she doesn't want harassment. Regardless, if you get in and talk to an attorney, they're going to explain all this stuff very quick. And instead of worrying about this and having anxiety and restless nights and maybe going weeks without seeing your kids because you think you're under some sort of a protective order, the reality is that this is something very mundane, very mild, that is just to maintain the status quo.
Absolutely. That's absolutely correct. And kind of on your point of just get in and speak to an attorney, if we are talking about an order that you have to be aware of there being some prohibitions on your behavior, all the more reason to talk to a lawyer.
Yeah.
Ignorance of the law is not a justification for it. And so the court, if you are served with an order, will expect you to understand it.
Yeah, for sure. So what we're going to talk about and kind of in a little bit, in another video we're going to shoot, is going to be, okay, the protective orders that, hey, you should be really worried about. Because these are the ones, the ones we've talked about here, these are things that are almost going to always be in your divorce petition. You're going to see them, you're going to read the language, and what we'd prefer is that you not overreact and, panic.
Correct.
But rather, you have some sort of calming presence about this. All right, I just need to talk to the lawyer. Let me contact the Johnson firm and schedule an appointment and understand exactly what this is.
Absolutely.
Hey, we appreciate you watching that video. If you have other questions about other legal topics, check out our website, johnsonfirmla.com, or our YouTube page. We put out material all of the time in the areas of family law, personal injury, and criminal defense. We really appreciate you checking us out. Thanks so much.